Coming to you from a cozy little condo high atop Old 4th Ward, Atlanta. Welcome to The Ron Show on America One Radio. Here's your host, Ron Roberts.
All right, so we're expecting the Federal Reserve to finally join the rest of the organized world and begin lowering their prime rate. Pretty excited about this. And as a residential real estate agent or realtor, I guess I should be. Although mortgage rates have actually already, in anticipation of the Federal Reserve doing what it will likely do today, the mortgage rates are already in the low sixes for a 30-year fixed rate. I mean, listen, you got to have good credit still. There's still some work you have to do to qualify for the lowest available rate. And actually, I'm seeing, especially like a lot of new home builders with incentives and this, that, and the other, they're actually offering upper fives, like 5.99, and even some rate buy downs for the first, second, and third year. So there are a lot of incentives out there to buy a new home, especially with the new home builders. And listen, I'm happy to talk about that. We'll dive into that in just a little bit, what the repercussions can be for the Federal Reserve and their anticipated rate cut, how big the cut will be, if this will be the only cut we expect, all that good stuff, diving into that in just a little bit. Oh, hang on. I also have to give you an update on the Cop City saga here in the city of Atlanta. It involves ping pong balls and dropped money laundering cases. How's that for a tease? Lots to look forward to later in the show. Up first, though, let's dive into national politics because that's just been dominating our lives. We're all stressed out. We all need that somebody walking up behind us shoulder massage thing, right? Because this is just driving us all absolutely bonkers. With the second, I don't even want to call it an assassination attempt because the guy who sought to, and for 12 hours, camped out in the bushes beside Trump's golf course for 12 hours. I mean, is there any more proof that that man was cray-cray and had access to an AK-47? The GOP loves that. Anyway, I can't call it an assassination attempt because he didn't actually get to take a shot at Donald Trump. He did not have a clear line of sight, yada, yada, yada. Anyway, after the revelation that there was a second person who sought to attempt to take Donald Trump's life. Is that how we'll frame it? In the aftermath of that, there's already the posturing from J.D. Vance and the GOP, his acolytes, that Democrats need to dial down the rhetoric. We got to stop calling him an existential threat to democracy, though he is. And I remember after the first assassination attempt, I said on this very show, I'm not going to stop saying it. He is an existential threat to democracy. He said he's going to be a dictator on day one. I can't unhear that. I can't unknow that. And I'm not going to forget that. And we shouldn't either. But I actually started working on this yesterday and some other things came up because, again, I'm a real estate agent. This doesn't pay the way real estate does. So real estate comes first. Some things came up as I was starting to research, coming together a bunch of Trump clips where he's the one ratcheting up the very same rhetoric that J.D. Vance has the cojones to call Democrats out for. And, you know, I should have known this was going to happen all along. The folks at The Daily Show did the research for me, and now I just get to share their work instead of having to have poured hours into finding these clips myself and then splicing them together, because I'm a staff of one. They are a staff of many. Roll the tape from last night.
This weekend, a crazy person tried to hunt Donald Trump in his natural habitat, his golf course.
Investigators say a Secret Service agent monitoring the woods ahead of Mr. Trump as he played golf on Sunday saw a rifle barrel through the tree line and opened fire.
The subject, who did not have line of sight to the former president, fled the scene. He did not fire or get off any shots at our agent.
Cell phone records show he had been in place at the edge of the golf course for nearly 12 hours.
This guy managed to walk into Trump's golf course and stay there undetected for 12 hours. Okay, and I don't know if you've thought about this, Trump, but maybe you should consider building, like a wall. Like, I don't know if you're like a wall guy. Just think about it. But, by the way, have you noticed that the news reports are all like, a harrowing near tragedy, sending chills through a nation. And meanwhile, everyone you actually know is like, yeah, I saw that. Yeah. I mean, we have to act like it's a big deal, but it doesn't really have the same impact of the first one, you know? It's kind of like Black Panther 2. You're like, yeah, I guess I'll see it. I mean, how's that going to work?
Or as I said earlier this week, we've just become so desensitized to it, like we have mass shootings. Ho hum, what are you going to do?
Why did this guy come for Trump? I mean, according to J.D. Vance, Trump's VP, and the worst thing to happen to Cat Lady since feline AIDS, Democrats made him do it.
The left needs to tone down the rhetoric and needs to cut this crap out. We cannot tell the American people that one candidate is a fascist, and if he's elected, it is going to be the end of American democracy.
Yeah, liberals, stop accurately describing Trump, okay? You're putting him in danger when you repeat the things he says verbatim. But J.D. Vance has a point. The left needs to stop calling its political opponents fascists. Okay? You don't see Donald Trump doing that all the time.
Here it is. Thank you, Ronnie Chang and the staff of The Daily Show for doing what I did not have the time to do yesterday. Here is the collection of Donald Trump using the violent rhetoric language that J.D. Vance abhors.
She's a Marxist. She's a fascist.
She's a Marxist, communist, fascist, socialist.
We have a fascist person running. There's a radical left Marxist, communist, fascist. She's a Marxist, communist, fascist person.
What? That last one, it felt like he ran out of words that end in "is." She's a Marxist, communist, fascist, dermatologist. I mean, Trump has called Kamala fascist so much, I'm not sure he knows her name. It's like when you say to a coworker, yeah, good to see you, my fascist buddy. Don't forget the rules of slurs either, okay? You can use the word if you are one. That's why I can call someone else Ronnie, but you can't call me Ronnie, okay? That's our word.
And actually, you know what? As a kid who grew up being called Ronnie by my family members, or Little Ronnie, actually, because my dad's name is Ron as well, that's how they distinguished between the two of us when they were trying to get one of our attention. He was Ron, I was Ronnie, or Little Ronnie. Nobody else gets to call me that. And my professional adult name is just Ron. Okay, whatever. I was just jumping onto Ronnie Chang's diatribe there. Although he does sort of make a point. You know, there's that one word that folks with a little more melanin use that we shouldn't. And in the gay community, there's that one word that we like to use to each other that you shouldn't use if you're not one of us. You know the word. Girl. Oh, no, wait, the other one. Yeah, okay, the actual slur. Okay, I digress. Let's move on.
But look, whether or not you think the rhetoric should be toned down, it's just not something that Trump and Vance actually believe in. I mean, for the past week, the city of Springfield has been overrun with bomb threats after Trump and Vance claimed that Haitian immigrants are eating everyone's cats and dogs, which there is no evidence of. I mean, people love posting photos of their food, okay? So we would have seen it by now. But when Trump was asked about those bomb threats, he didn't seem too concerned.
Did you denounce the bomb threats in Springfield, Ohio?
I don't know what happened with the bomb threats. I know that it's been taken over by illegal migrants.
Okay, can we not all agree that we would denounce bomb threats? Like, we should all be against bomb threats, right? And also, they're not illegal migrants, but slur gonna slur.
Yeah, the guy who wants everyone to believe he's super concerned about political violence can't even bring himself to say he's against bomb threats. I mean, what more information are you waiting for? It's a bomb threat. You need to know who the bomb was going to vote for? I mean, I can't believe this guy is saying there are very fine bomb threats on both sides. You know, this isn't a trick question. This is a layup for politicians. It's like, do you support the troops or do you like Taylor Swift? Just say yes. It's a layup.
Except this tweet.
So will any of the heated rhetoric in this country change? Probably not. But there was at least one moment over the weekend that offered a glimmer of hope.
President Biden tonight spoke on the phone with Trump. The White House describes the conversation as cordial, with Biden sharing his relief that the former president is safe, and then Trump thanking Biden for the call.
Oh, yeah, Joe Biden. I forgot about that guy. That's right, he's the president.
Oh, yeah.
It's so nice when two 80-year-old men can speak to each other on the last piece of technology they can truly understand. And I know you're thinking, it would be great if we knew exactly what they talked about on that call. Well, luckily, we at The Daily Show got our hands on the very real audio recording.
Hello? Hey, Donnie. It's me, President Joe, Biden? That's it, Biden. My name's Joe Brandon. I just want to say I'm glad you're safe. Directing Secretary Service, make sure Mar-a-Lago completely secure.
Thank you, Joe. And let me just say, please come back.
Huh?
Please, Joe. This race is no fun without you. Everyone is shooting at me. This black lady keeps laughing at me in the debates. I need you back, Joe. We had good times together, didn't we?
Of course we did, Donnie. Run gets shoes with us and give my life purpose. Nowadays, no one even pays attention to me. Just yesterday, I fell down a flight of stairs. Jill just walked over me.
Then tell everyone you're back in the race. You can call me a threat to democracy. I'll call you a demented head of an international crime family. It'll be like old times.
Don't you think I want to? They won't let me. Nancy Pelosi's outside my door right now with a baseball bat. Sorry, Donnie. I gotta go.
I gotta go too. J.D. Vance just called women walking embryo bags, so I gotta deal with that. Goodbye, Joe.
Wait, Donnie. Run away with me.
What?
Meet me at the old oak tree at 5 o'clock. We drive to some small Latino country and run for president there.
Oh my God. Is this really happening? Are you serious, Joe?
I'm as serious as the threat represent democracy to you are, old friend.
You half-dead son of a bitch. You've made me the happiest man alive.
Well, we know that was a fictitious call, right? Obviously, because Donald Trump's not in love with the idea of running away with Joe Biden. He's apparently in love with running away with Laura Loomer. Anyhow, again, to reiterate, thank you, Ronnie Chang and The Daily Show, for putting together the clip of violent rhetoric that Democrats can cite and say, sure, you first.
She's a Marxist. She's a fascist. She's a Marxist, communist, fascist, socialist.
We have a fascist person running.
There's a radical left Marxist, communist, fascist.
She's a Marxist, communist, fascist person.
And honestly, that's not even including the clips we could pull together of him talking about how she or they are destroying the country. And by they, I don't just mean Democrats or liberals or Marxists or fascists. I'm talking about the immigrant community and anyone who is not MAGA. Or audio of him essentially saying that if he doesn't win this election, that the country is essentially over. That is rhetorical and that is damaging and dangerous, right? Right? Do we all agree on that? As they say on those really loud cable TV commercials that jar you at 3 a.m. But wait, there's more. The Ron Show after this on America One Radio and Progressive Voices via TuneIn. You can follow The Ron Show on your preferred social media platforms at Ron Show ATL, Twitter, X, Instagram, Threads, Facebook. They're all there. Yeah, let's talk a little bit more about violent rhetoric. And I mean, it's not like we've been in a coma. Most of us haven't been in a coma since 2015 when it comes to violent rhetoric, right? And how easily folks can be motivated by violent rhetoric. How about this, Jim, from Good Morning America more than 3 years ago?
The power of the president's words and how they may have inspired some of his supporters to violence and possibly the insurrection at the Capitol. ABC's Elwin Lopez has more.
The deadly siege on Capitol Hill, a stark reminder of President Trump's rhetoric.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol because you'll never take back our country with weakness.
For years, the president has repeatedly denied his words were at the center of divisiveness in our country.
I think my rhetoric is it brings people together.
Yes, as it did on January 6, 2021 to the U.S. Capitol.
But since he took office, page after page of police reports underscore his name and his words. Take a look at this video out of Gainesville, Florida from 2016. A Hispanic man working, cleaning outside of a gas station, when all of a sudden, a stranger punches him in the back of the head.
This is for Trump.
An ABC News investigation found that when it comes to violent acts, threats, or alleged assaults, President Trump's name appeared in more than 50 criminal cases, and some of the suspects charged were found to be mentally ill, others dangerously devoted to their politics. Cesar Sayoc is a male bomber who pleaded guilty in 2019 to 65 federal charges after targeting some of the president's most vocal critics. Sayok's lawyer telling the judge, quote, "We believe the president's rhetoric contributed to Mr. Sayok's actions in this offense." And back in 2018, this man was arrested after threatening to massacre employees of the Boston Globe for their coverage of Trump, calling the journalist, quote, "the enemy of the people."
A few days ago, I called the fake news the enemy of the people, and they are.
I mean, you can't telegraph that any clearer. I mean, that is connect the dots-ish right there, is it not?
But recently, it was the commander-in-chief's baseless claims of voter fraud that raised concerns, even among election officials.
Someone's going to get hurt, someone's going to get shot, someone's going to get killed.
Should I mention that this came out before January 6, 2021? I guess I should.
The president may not be directly responsible for the acts of violence conducted by some of these individuals, but his words do provide them the validation.
The president disagrees.
Do you think that you bear any responsibility for moderating your language when it comes to that?
No, I don't. I think my language is very nice.
Well, there you go. J.D. Vance, what say you?
And the president's false claims of voter fraud continue to be in the headlines. In a late December phone call, President Trump encouraged an election official here in Georgia to, quote, "find the fraud."
Again, that report came out in December of 2020, and we know what happened days later. This from CBS News just a year ago.
We want to begin with growing concerns about violence as Donald Trump is using increasingly ominous and threatening rhetoric as his legal challenges mount. The top Democrat in the House warning the former president will get someone killed. This comes as an envelope with white powder and a note that read, "I'm going to kill you," was sent to Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg's office today. CBS News has learned that security has been stepped up for Bragg over the last few weeks. And just days ago, the New York City courthouse, where a grand jury is deciding Trump's fate, was temporarily shut down because of bomb threats. Meanwhile, today, big developments in that probe by a special counsel, a federal judge ordering some of Trump's closest personal, political, and national security aides to testify before a different grand jury probing the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. That includes former Chief of Staff Mark Meadows. CBS's Robert Costa is going to start us off with new reporting. Good evening, Robert.
Good evening, Nora. Backlash today to the former president's explosive comment about that ongoing investigation in New York days before a possible decision on an indictment of Trump.
The twice impeached former president's rhetoric is reckless, reprehensible, and irresponsible.
House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries sounding the alarm today after former President Trump warned that death and destruction is possible if he's indicted.
It's dangerous, and if he keeps it up, he's going to get someone killed.
And he endangers himself by doing this, obviously, because there have been, well, one attempt and another intending to attempt to take his life because he's the one that dialed up the rhetoric. He turned the temperature up, and saying so isn't contributing to the dialing up of the temperature. It's just stating that water is wet.
Trump also reposted an ominous altered image where he is holding a baseball bat next to an image of Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg, who has one of his hands raised.
What about Joe Biden in the back of the pickup truck? Remember the what was it, like a tailgate with the image of Joe Biden lying in the back of the truck, bound and gagged and tied up? Hello, Trump retweeted that.
Bragg, who now has increased security, received a death threat today at his New York office. A letter addressed to him with a note inside saying, "Alvin, I'm going to kill you." It contained a small amount of white powder, but was determined to be non-hazardous. Meanwhile, Trump's legal challenges in Washington are mounting. A federal judge ordered several of his former top aides to testify about his conduct before and during the January 6th Capitol attack, including former Chief of Staff Mark Meadows.
And honestly, okay, so, I'm kind of done with the CBS piece here, but I feel like it needs to be said, like, we're really only skimming the surface here. We haven't even gone back to Trump rallies where he's encouraging people to punch, push, and shove protesters. First Amendment right. Shove and push and punch protesters. Get them out of here. I'll pay your legal. He literally promised to pay people's legal fees if they would be violent towards protesters at his rallies. Y'all, I feel like we've all stood before Will Smith what is it? The brain scrambler from Men in Black. Have we all forgotten this stuff? This wasn't that long ago. This was not. I'm sorry. I can't. I can't excuse J.D. Vance, and I can't excuse other Trump acolytes for forgetting this stuff. They're not forgetting it, and they're not unaware that that guy is a volcano of violent rhetoric. They just can't control him. We saw in the debate most recently, he's not coachable and controllable. They tried, and they cannot. So instead, they have to focus on pointing fingers at other people because they can't stop him from doing it, but they're going to try and blame everyone else for matching it. And actually, I don't think calling him an existential threat to democracy even does that. It's just, again, stating that water is wet, that fire is hot, that Donald Trump is an existential threat to democracy. Back after this, The Ron Show on America One Radio, AmericaOneRadio.com. Progressive Voices via TuneIn, or if you podcast, well, wherever you podcast. Thank you for listening.
This is The Ron Show on America One Radio.
So, if you listen outside of Metro Atlanta or outside of the state of Georgia, you may not even be aware that there has been this long simmering, more than a year and a half long, 2 years even, battle over a proposed Atlanta public safety training facility to be built, by the way, outside Atlanta city limits. That makes no sense. In DeKalb County, where the residents of DeKalb County, or even more specifically, that area of DeKalb County, really had no say nor representation, I guess, in the matter. Because, again, the land that the city of Atlanta has been looking to build this public safety training facility on is not within city limits, and the folks who live near it aren't either. In fact, their elected representation on the DeKalb County Commission has been vocally opposing the use of that land owned by the city of Atlanta, but not in the city of Atlanta, to be used for this public safety training facility. There's been environmental concern. There's been neighborly concerns, concerns about why are we building a massive college-sized campus to train police departments, not just Atlanta's, by the way, but so big enough that other police departments and other law enforcement agencies around the state and Southeast could come and use it themselves. A lot of concern about that, right? Well, there has been a Stop Cop City movement. It's been colloquially called Cop City by its detractors instead of the Atlanta Public Safety Training Facility. And Mayor Andre Dickens and the majority of Atlanta City Council, who are in favor of this with the Atlanta Police Foundation and their financial backing and involvement, have tried to tell us, well, this is not just going to be a police training facility, although the Atlanta Police Foundation is the financial arm spearheading a lot of this. Anyway, an effort 2 summers ago to put together a referendum, legal in the state of Georgia, secured more than 115,000 signatures. Now, how many of them are legitimate? We may never know because it was more than a year ago. In fact, they just they just commemorated the anniversary of turning in those signatures from more than a year ago that are still sitting in an Atlanta City Clerk's closet awaiting validation. In that year since, of course, through legal wrangling, construction continues to go on. In fact, it's damn near completed. While that referendum and all those signatures of the 115,000 or so Atlanta City residents, we assume all legal Atlanta City residents, or at least we would think a vast majority on those referendum ballot petitions would be legal, have wanted to be able to have a say in whether the city carries on with that construction. They've run out the clock. They've essentially run out the clock. Here in City Hall, Stop Cop City protesters showed up with bags and bags, I think 115,000 or so, ping pong balls. Chanting, you drop the ball. Calamity. Okay, so you get the idea, right? The Stop Cop City protesters haven't really gone away. It's just that their tactics have, when they've garnered headlines, usually come along the lines of, getting them arrested. So, not a good call. And among any who have commented or chimed in on this, have said, I don't believe in the arson and the destruction of property and the gumming up of machinery from construction. I can't abide by that. But also, it has to be pointed out that there's been an element in law enforcement, which only really bolsters their case, the Stop Cop City folks, right? To over-prosecute, to over-police. Here we got a story in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, the headline, the Attorney General, Georgia Attorney General Chris Carr, his office has dropped money laundering charges in the Atlanta Police Training Center case. Joseph Papp reporting that the Georgia Attorney General's office announced Tuesday, quietly, it was dropping a number of money laundering charges against some of the 61 indicted protesters of the Atlanta Public Safety Training Center. A total of 15 money laundering charges against Marion Couts, Adele McLean, and Savannah Patterson, all who spent time in jail, by the way, were dismissed. The charges, we're talking SWAT teams coming into the Atlanta Solidarity Fund, house, building, office, swooping in, grabbing them, early dawn raid. It was quite the spectacle, right? Joseph Papp continues. The charges stem from their involvement in the Atlanta Solidarity Fund, which prosecutors alleged raised bail money for people arrested protesting the training center. Attorney Don Samuel, whose law firm represents all three, said his clients were delighted that they now only face one count of RICO instead of 16 total counts. He said, the government read our briefs and all the papers for the first time last night and realized that it did not properly allege the offense, so it's dismissed and the judge had no questions. That's what Samuels told Joseph Papp at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. The judge, quote, agreed the money laundering charges don't even allege a crime, he said. In a statement, the Attorney General's office said they, quote, chose not to proceed. No, that's a terminology. They're just, we're just not going to proceed with the money laundering charges, but the RICO charges remain. Samuel said he thinks the state knew Fulton County Superior Court Judge Kimberly Adams was going to dismiss those charges, so they did it voluntarily. Joseph Papp continues, Samuel said he doesn't expect the state to re-indict on the money laundering charges since it will add another year for the case. What? Running out the clock? We don't see that happen, except with Trump and all his cases. And obviously, the city of Atlanta just refusing to even acknowledge there are boxes of petitions in their clerk's closet, let alone validate the signatures to get a petition on a ballot. And it's not like we don't have an election coming up in, just a matter of weeks, right? They were aiming to have this on the primary ballot in March. That's how long ago they turned this stuff in, y'all. And here we are more than a year later, and it's not even going to wind up on the November ballot. They've run out the clock. Joseph Papp continues reporting, the indictment, which was filed in August of 2023, named the three as bail fund organizers who were arrested in May 2023 during a raid at a home on Mason Avenue. A total of 225, quote, overt acts are cited in that indictment, starting with two defendants throwing objects and a Molotov cocktail at the Georgia State Patrol headquarters in July 5th, 2020. Cannot abide by that. And ending with incidents that occurred 2 weeks before the indictment was revealed. Most of the acts mentioned in the indictment involved the three defendants transferring money from the Network for Strong Communities to allegedly reimburse and fund those occupying the forest. According to the Secretary of State's records, McLean serves as the CEO, Couts as the CFO, and Patterson as the Secretary for Network for Strong Communities, which was formed in August of 2020, and the principal office address is the home on Mason Avenue. The three are also accused of being involved, along with unindicted co-conspirators, with threatening and promoting violence and property damage toward companies involved in the construction of the training center. And I say, and I'm reiterating here, if there's evidence and they're guilty, throw the book at them. Most of the monetary transfers, Joseph Papp writes, cited in the indictment are for nominal amounts of less than $100. The ruling comes about 2 weeks after the judge allowed the AG's office to remain on the case over Samuel's call for their removal. On Tuesday, Adams also heard argument from Samuel and other attorneys about dismissing the RICO count, but didn't rule. Samuel argued that officials with the AG's office and Atlanta Police Department, as part of their investigation into Couts, McLean, and Patterson, had accessed attorney-client privileged communication and later shared those emails with attorneys representing the other 58 defendants. Although she allowed the AG's office to continue to prosecute the case, in an August 30th order, the judge admonished the state and warned that any future misconduct would result in, quote, additional sanctions sanctions as determined appropriate. Adams has also ordered the state to provide within 10 days a list of all the individuals who may have possessed and or received the emails and a copy of all the warrants the state has used to obtain similar materials. Prosecutors were ordered to meet with the defense and establish a filter team to go through materials seized by law enforcement in a similar way. The first defendant that was set to go to trial was Isla King after filing the only speedy trial demand of the defendants. However, her trial is currently on hold as they await a ruling from the Georgia Court of Appeals. All right, almost done here. Once King's trial is finished, Adams expects to begin prosecuting the remaining 60 defendants in groups of 5, with Patterson, Couts, and McLean among the first group. Opponents of the training center gathered at City Hall Monday to protest the city's lack of action. We just heard the audio from that. 1 year after they submitted more than 100,000 signatures in an effort to put the controversial facility on the ballot. The referendum effort is currently in limbo until the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals rules on an issue that will help determine the validity of some of the petition's signatures. The city expects the facility to be complete and operational by December. Back after this. All right, final couple minutes here of the Ron Show. What are we expecting the Federal Reserve to do today? We're expecting them to lower interest rates, their prime rate anyway. So there's a lot of speculation. How much? How many times will they do it? I'm going to go ahead and guess. And again, I'm no economist, so it's not like I'm going to tell you to run to the stock market and do anything with what I'm telling you to do, because do not. My guess is we're going to see a 0.25% drop. Now, there are those who are eager, maybe a little zealous about this and thinking that the Federal Reserve may just drop it by 0.5%. And we've seen some cuts like that internationally from other monetary reserve boards in Great Britain, for example. I just feel like it's like Jerome Powell and the gang have been very measured in how they want to handle this. We're seeing some muddy economic indicators of late in the last month or so since the last time we heard from the Federal Reserve. I kind of believe that we are going to see them take a cautious approach, which is they've done for quite a while anyway. They've been very cautious about it. Much to my chagrin, I was saying in April, go ahead, cut it. I think we should go ahead and cut it. I think that we've hit a soft landing that they don't realize is a soft landing, and I think we kind of have. I mean, the inflation has kind of sat at around 3% for quite a while now, and they really wanted to get into the 2s. Not sure we're going to see that, but I do think we've sort of landed at where we're going to be for the foreseeable future anyway. You have to understand that the economy is still recovering from a lot of calamity. I mean, the pandemic was an unforeseen, once-in-a-century kind of thing. And the economy of the 1920s, well, we know what happened then, but the economy of the early 1900s is so vastly different than the economy of 2021. My God, who would have predicted in the 1900s words like crypto and AI? And by the way, there could be another tech bubble. We're seeing some indications of there being a bit of a tech bubble bursting now because folks were quick to come in, go on all chips in on AI, and now AI is kind of getting pulled back a little bit. And so we saw, in fact, I'm going to read this from Rob Weil at NBC News. A retail sales report Tuesday showed a steady pace of spending in the U.S. overall, but with some discretionary categories like restaurant spending significantly weaker. This is why I kind of think the Federal Reserve is not going to go gung-ho and go just dropping interest rates to the floor. And by the way, 0.25% now, maybe 0.25%, 2-3 months down the road, will give some relief. I also happen to think, and again, I'm not an economist, but I'm a political pundit. I happen to think that 0.25% won't get nearly the ire of, I don't know, somebody who's not currently president but running to be president, who might think that the Federal Reserve is trying to meddle in the election. I kind of think that 0.25% might actually keep the Federal Reserve out of the, can I say crosshairs? I'm afraid that that's violent rendering. I think that might keep them off of his radar. And listen, I'm not going to sit here and suggest that that's factoring in, but they're human beings. It has to kind of factor in, right? So what do we get from this? We'll get some relief. In fact, we've already seen relief. I'm a residential realtor. We're already seeing relief with mortgage rates. Mortgage rates, again, you can find with incentives, you can find rates in the high fives. I actually think when mortgage rates in general get to the mid fives and lower, and that could be 6 months, maybe less down the road, we're going to see a reinvigoration of the housing market, and we're already starting to see a lot of refinancing inquiries popping up already for mortgage refinancing. I think what we're going to see in the immediate result of the looming rate cut that we'll likely get today is you're going to see your credit card rate go down a little bit. Folks have been, with inflation being what it was from 2021 and 2022 and into 2023, a lot of folks who were not looking to cut their streaming services or this, that, and the other. And we've been, as Americans, shopping like no big deal. We've been traveling like no big deal, even though the inflation was kind of a big deal for a minute. I think a lot of folks have been living on the credit card. We see evidence of that, America's credit card usage and the debt that credit cards are holding from American consumers is pretty high, historically high. And we'll see some relief with those credit card rates, especially if you've been able to keep up with your balance or keep the balance at a certain threshold, et cetera, and so on. If you are looking to go buy a car, you're going to see a little bit easier time when it comes to getting the right financing you're looking for. So I think we're going to see a little bit of that right away. I also think, from a manufacturing standpoint, especially like home builders, we need more homes. We're like 4, 6, 8 million. What is the number now? Behind in the number of move-in ready homes that the American consumer needs to make housing viable and affordable for the average American. I think that you'll start seeing supply costs go down as a result, because a lot of that's tied to financing too. A lot of home builders are financing what they purchase in order to build what you purchase. So, and that could affect home prices as well. This has, seriously, 0.25% of the Fed's prime rate can have that kind of ripple effect. And obviously, this is good for the economy. And that is why it gets back to, is this political fodder? Yeah, probably is. But I think it's an important thing to point out that folks, from the moment Joseph Robinette Biden put his palm on the Bible and took the oath of office, have been promising us that there was a recession looming. And I readily admit, I believe that there were those on the right, especially, the Fox Business types, who were kind of putting it out there into the ether, putting it out there into the world, hoping it would come to fruition on someone's presidential watch. Well, they're running out of time. They're running out of time on that to come to fruition. I think they've realized long ago that that's not come to fruition. I think that's exactly why we saw Donald Trump pleading with Republicans in the Senate to put the brakes on immigration reform, because that is the issue we've seen him run. We haven't seen a whole lot of talk about the economy. I mean, yeah, inflation, I guess, in some respects, but even that can be easily explained. I am pleading with Democrats in the Harris-Walz campaign to, by the way, sharpen their message on that. There is one pretty effective, short little Trump-Vance campaign ad where you hear Kamala at a speech talking about the cost of bread and the cost of meat, and then you hear Trump, approves that message. They got to sharpen their message on inflation. The true story of inflation is it was out of control, and it was worse outside the U.S. than it was in the U.S. We actually had a subdued, if you can believe that, inflationary response to the supply chain crunch and the 2020 the COVID pandemic and the shutdown, et cetera, and so on, and got it under control. And oh, by the way, the Federal Reserve, being autonomous and free of political chicanery, did what they did, ramping up their prime rate, which of course ramped up, mortgage rates and all the other, costs, and oh, by the way, the war in Ukraine, we had nothing to do with that. I mean, we didn't make Vladimir Putin invade Ukraine. Joe Biden didn't make Vladimir Putin invade Ukraine or invite Hamas to attack Israel. There are all these issues going on globally that affect the price of energy, fuel costs, etc. And by the way, the U.S. is cranking out more gas, more oil than ever before in history. And, Trump's running for office promising to drill, baby, drill on day one. Well, we're, much to my chagrin, already doing that. And, oh, by the way, diversifying our energy, which in the long run is going to make America a stronger country and more independent of international fossil fuels and the global fossil fuel market as a result. Oh, and, by the way, it's going to clean up our environment and, make our air breathable and our water drinkable and yada, yada, yada. Minor stuff, little things like that. Anyway, that's kind of what I expect to happen today. I expect the Fed's going to probably lower the rate by 0.25%. If they drop it by 0.5%, I'll be stunned. Pleasantly stunned, but I'll be stunned because I think they've been very measured in their responses up to this point, and I don't anticipate them a tiger changing its stripes at this point in time. I am looking forward to that 0.25% rate drop. I don't expect that that's going to have an impact on mortgage rates necessarily because, again, mortgage rates, lenders have been anticipating this and have already adjusted ahead of time. So don't expect to see huge drops in mortgage rates. Already, again, in the low sixes for good credit scores, and with incentives, you can get them in the mid to high fives. And by the way, if you think I'm just pulling out of my listen, this clip from the Today Show actually makes me sound really smart right now. I just found this and I thought I'd reiterate or let them reiterate what I'm saying.
Those candidates in the 2024 race, business owners, American consumers, all watching the Federal Reserve very closely today because they're poised to lower interest rates for the first time in years. NBC's senior business correspondent, Christine Roman's here with more on what to expect and what it means for our money as well. Good morning to you. For a long time, the question was whether or not they would actually cut rates. Now the question seems to be by how much. So do we know at this point?
It's an important new phase. We'll know this afternoon. It's either going to be a small rate cut of a 0.25 point or a bigger rate cut of 0.5 point. And there's a big discussion about which one is more appropriate. I haven't seen this much drama around that big stone building in a long, long time. But what happens today behind those pillars over there at the Federal Reserve is going to matter to your kitchen table. So it's super important here. The Fed usually cuts rates when the economy is weak, but we have a pretty decent economy here. Retail sales yesterday we saw were still strong. Inflation at a 3-year low. You've got gas prices down some 67 cents compared with a year ago. Stocks near record highs. So we've got a good background here, which is why some people think the Fed has room to just cut a little bit.
So what will that mean for Mary Smith? So they make the cut today, and then what?
It means that right away you've already seen mortgage rates falling in anticipation. So if you're somebody who's looking to refinance a home, you've got mortgage rates just above 6% right now. So that's 2 points lower than it was about a year ago. So for people who want to refinance, that's important news. For those of you who have a lot of money on credit cards, or you're looking to refinance like an auto loan or get a new car, it might be slower for those rates to decline. But we think this is the beginning of a series of Federal Reserve rate cuts. So this is an important new phase, guys, for your money going forward here.
So if they do, well, they're going to cut rates, whether it's 0.25 or 0.5. But let's say that happens. Should you run right out and refinance? Or you were just saying that there's going to be more and more cuts. So when do you know this is the time?
I think you prepare to refinance. You make sure that you've got your, financial ducks in order, pay down your credit card debt. Also, you can call your credit card companies and say, can you please lower my interest rates? We know that lower interest rates are coming in.
They picked up the call and they're like, sure.
Yeah. Oh, yes, of course. No, but you can call and ask to do that, especially if you're always paying your bills on time. But get your financial house in order because there's going to be room to refi in the days and months ahead.
Okay. Christine Romans with the good news.
If you want to venture a guess, 0.25 or 5?
I've been saying 0.25 for a long time, but a lot of really smart people are saying it could be 0.5 point.
By the way, she asked you that, so tomorrow she can say.
No, that's not true.
I'm kidding.
It's just fun. It's just having good old clean fun with the financial
I think Jay Powell doesn't like to surprise people, so that's the thing.
All right.
Thank you, Christine.
Thank you, Christine.
Yeah, thank you, Christine. You made me sound abso-freaking-lutely brilliant. Oh, I don't have time to bask in the glow because there's the sound of the show coming to an end. Thank you for listening to The Ron Show today. Weekdays on America One Radio, 9 to 10 a.m. By the time this replays, 5 to 6 p.m., we'll already know what the Federal Reserve is going to do. 7 to 8 p.m., Progressive Voices via TuneIn. You'll already know as well, and maybe I'll be wrong, maybe I'll be right. Also, wherever you podcast, show notes at ronshowatl.com. See you tomorrow.